You're going to recognize yourself in this list. Not in a comfortable way, in this specific, slightly uncomfortable way that happens when someone describes a spending pattern you've normalized so completely that it stopped registering as a choice a long time ago. The subscription you forgot you're paying, the upgrade you made because the timing felt right rather than because you'd calculated what it actually cost over time. The thing you bought because everyone around you had one and its absence started to feel like a statement you weren't trying to make. You're going to read through these 12 categories and nod at some, push back on others, and feel a specific recognition on at least 3 or 4 that you'll be reluctant to admit out loud. That recognition is the point, not guilt. Guilt doesn't change spending behavior, and this video isn't interested in producing it. But the awareness that precedes a decision, the moment between the stimulus and the purchase where a different choice becomes possible. The people building real wealth, not performing it, building it, have made a specific decision about each of these 12 categories, not because they're more disciplined or more virtuous, because they ran the numbers, understood the opportunity cost, and decided that what these things actually cost was more than the version of themselves that buys them without thinking is prepared to pay. Here are the 12 things they've stopped buying and why each one is more expensive than the price tag suggests. 1. New cars financed over long terms. You already know this one, but knowing it and acting on it are two different things, which is why it leads the list. The average new car payment in 2024 is $767 per month on a loan averaging 68.9 months. That's 6 years. $767 per month for 6 years is $55,224 in total payments on a vehicle worth approximately $25,000 to $28,000 by the time the last payment clears. The interest alone on a $45,000 loan at 6.8% over 72 months is approximately $10,000, money that produced no asset, no equity, no return of any kind. The people building wealth drive reliable, used vehicles purchased at 2 to 3 years old after someone else has absorbed the first 20 to 25% of depreciation on the shortest loan term manageable, paid off, and then driven for as many additional years as the vehicle reliably allows. Every month after the loan is paid off is a month where $700 to $900 stays in an account instead of going to a lender. Over 5 years of no payment, redirected into an index fund, that's $42,000 to $54,000 in additional invested wealth from one car decision made once.
2. Extended warranties on depreciating purchases. Best Buy, Apple, the car dealership, the appliance store, every retailer that sells something expensive also sells a protection plan on it. The plan exists because the manufacturer knows with actuarial precision that the product will almost certainly not fail within the coverage period. The warranty is priced to generate profit above the expected claims payout. If it weren't, they'd stop selling it. Consumer Reports analysis consistently finds that extended warranties cost more than the repairs they cover in the majority of cases. The wealth-building alternative is self-insurance, a dedicated repair fund in a high-yield savings account that earns interest rather than disappearing into an insurance company's margin. Across a household of appliances, electronics, and vehicles, self-insurance through a funded repair account beats the aggregate extended warranty cost in most scenarios. The exception is high failure rate products, where the repair cost approaches the replacement cost. Everything else is margin for the retailer, funded by you. 3. Lottery tickets and financial fantasy products. Americans spent approximately $100 billion on lottery tickets in 2025, more than they spent on books, music, movies, and video games combined. The expected return on a lottery ticket is approximately 50 cents per dollar, a guaranteed wealth destruction mechanism marketed as possibility. The same category includes trading courses promising to teach you to generate $10,000 weekly from your phone, drop-shipping masterclasses, crypto signal groups, passive income blueprints for $297, and every other product that sells the shortcut to wealth rather than the mechanism. The people getting rich in these ecosystems are the people selling the products. You are the revenue. The shortcut is the product. Understanding this distinction is worth considerably more than any course that claims to teach it. $5 per day in lottery tickets is $1,825 per year. Invested at 7% annual returns for 30 years, approximately $185,000. The lottery produces an expected $912 across the same period. The gap between those two numbers is the lifetime cost of buying hope instead of building a position. 4. Subscription accumulation. The average American carries $219 per month in active subscriptions. Their self-estimate when asked is $86. The $133 gap is the subscription the algorithm reminded you to sign up for during a free trial period that ended quietly. The premium tier of the app you use twice monthly. The streaming service added for one show and never canceled when the season ended. The wealth-building approach to subscriptions is an annual audit, 1 hour per year, where every recurring charge gets reviewed against actual usage in the prior month, not usage you intend, usage that actually happened. The $15 monthly meditation app that hasn't been opened since February. The $12 cloud storage upgrade that predates the hard drive you bought to solve the same problem. The $8 news subscription you read on 3 occasions since subscribing 18 months ago. Each of these individually is not a meaningful financial event. The aggregate, reviewed annually and cleared of the ones that don't survive scrutiny, frees $50 to $100 per month with 1 hour of attention. Over 30 years invested at 7%, approximately $60,000 to $120,000 from canceling things you weren't using. 5. Status-driven clothing and accessories. The logo on the outside of the clothing is not a quality signal. It is a social signal, and you are paying a premium for the communication rather than the construction. A $450 polo shirt and a $45 polo shirt are both polo shirts. The additional $405 buys you approximately 40 seconds of status recognition from strangers who will not remember the shirt existed by the time you've walked past them. The research on luxury goods consumption in America consistently shows that a significant portion of designer purchases are financed, credit card balances carrying the cost of a signal the buyer couldn't afford in cash. The genuinely wealthy, the people with real net worth, not performed net worth, buy quality clothing without logos at prices calibrated to construction rather than communication. The wardrobe that lasts 10 years costs less per wear than the wardrobe updated seasonally to remain current in a market specifically designed to make last season's purchase feel obsolete. 6. Buying convenience systematically rather than occasionally. One Uber Eats order is not a financial problem. Uber Eats as the default mode of feeding yourself, 4 to 5 orders per week at an average of $38 including fees and tip, is $608 to $760 per month, $7,300 to $9,100 annually for food that costs $90 to $120 per week to prepare at home. The distinction wealth builders make is not between convenience and no convenience, it is between occasional and systematic. Delivery when you're genuinely unable to cook, and systematically for every meal that requires more than 15 minutes of preparation are different financial patterns, even when each individual transaction looks identical. The pattern is the problem. One transaction at a time, it stays beneath the awareness threshold. Monthly, the total produces a number that most people would find uncomfortable if they actually calculated it. Calculate it, then decide whether the convenience is worth the annual figure rather than the per-order one. 7. Minimum payments on credit card balances. This is not a thing you buy, it is a thing you do, and it belongs on this list because it is the single most reliably wealth-destroying financial behavior available to the majority of Americans, conducted monthly at a cost that the minimum payment frame specifically obscures. $8,000 on a credit card at 22% interest, minimum payments only. Payoff timeline, approximately 19 years. Total interest paid, approximately $11,000. You borrowed $8,000 and paid back $19,000. The bank collected from you $11,000 for the privilege of lending you money you've long since forgotten spending. The wealth-building alternative is the debt avalanche. Every available dollar above minimum payments directed at the highest interest rate balance first, clearing it completely, then redirecting that payment to the next highest rate. The guaranteed return on credit card payoff at 22% exceeds any investment return available at any risk level. Not theoretically, mathematically, every time without exception. The people building wealth treat consumer debt elimination as the highest priority investment available to them until the balance is zero, because it is.
8. Upgrading what already works. The phone that was perfectly adequate yesterday became inadequate the moment a company spent $200 million producing a keynote presentation telling you it was. The laptop that runs every application you need is suddenly insufficient because a thinner version exists. The car that reliably transports you to every destination you need to reach needs replacing because 48 months have elapsed and the industry's preferred replacement cycle has arrived. The Wealth Builder's framework for upgrades is simple. Does the current version fail to perform the function it exists to perform? If no, no upgrade. Not when something newer exists, not when the replacement cycle suggests it's time, not when the social environment around you is upgrading simultaneously. When the current version cannot perform its function, that standard, applied consistently across every major spending category, extends the average replacement cycle by 2 to 3 years per item, which across a household of phones, laptops, cars, appliances, and furniture represents a significant annual spending reduction achieved without sacrificing any functional capability whatsoever. 9. Financial products with fees that compound against you. Actively managed mutual funds charging 1.0 to 1.5% expense ratios, whole life insurance sold as an investment, variable annuities with 7-year surrender charges, structured products requiring a glossary to understand and a fee schedule to regret. These products exist because the financial services industry generates higher margins from complexity than from simplicity, and the margin differential funds a marketing apparatus specifically designed to make complexity feel like sophistication. The S&P SPIVA data showing that 92% of actively managed funds underperform their benchmark index over 15 years is not an argument for finding the 8% that outperform, it is an argument for not playing the game. A 1.0% expense ratio on a $200,000 portfolio costs $2,000 annually. Over 20 years, accounting for the compounding returns that fee is also consuming, the real cost approaches $80,000 to $100,000 in foregone wealth. The 0.03% index fund alternative is not a compromise. It is the statistically superior choice, available to anyone, requiring no financial sophistication and consistently outperforming the expensive alternative at the net return level. 10. Houses sized for aspiration rather than function. The extra bedroom that becomes a storage room, the formal dining room used 6 times per year, the yard requiring $200 monthly in maintenance, serving a lifestyle the buyer imagined rather than the one they actually live. The bigger house costs more than the mortgage payment to own. Property taxes, insurance, utilities, and maintenance all scale with square footage, and the monthly differential between the house that meets your functional needs and the house that performs your aspirational self-image, invested over the mortgage term, routinely approaches 7 figures in foregone compounding. The UCLA Center on Everyday Lives of Families found that American families actively use approximately 40% of their home's square footage. They pay for all of it. The 60% they're not using is heated, cooled, insured, maintained, and mortgaged at the same per square foot cost as the 40% that's actually serving a function. Buy the 40% you'll use. Invest the payment differential on the 60% you'd be funding without inhabiting.
11. Financial decisions made in emotional states. This is not a category of product, it is a category of decision, and it belongs here because the purchases made in specific emotional states consistently produce worse financial outcomes than the same purchases made from neutral states with adequate time for consideration. Retail therapy after a difficult week, the impulse purchase during a period of lifestyle comparison-driven inadequacy, the upgrade that arrives with a bonus that triggers the feeling of sudden abundance, the investment decision made during market euphoria, the liquidation decision made during market panic. Every one of these decisions shares a mechanism, an emotional state that bypasses the rational evaluation process and converts a feeling into a transaction before the feeling has had time to resolve itself without the transaction. The wealth builder's protection against emotional spending is the mandatory waiting period, 48 hours minimum for any non-essential purchase above a defined threshold. Not to research the purchase, not to comparison shop, simply to wait for the emotional state that generated the desire to resolve without the purchase, and then evaluate whether the desire survives the resolution. Most impulsive desires don't survive 48 hours of neutral time. The ones that do are probably genuine preferences worth honoring. The ones that don't were never about the product. 12. Other people's timelines applied to your financial life. This is the most expensive thing on the list and the one that's hardest to recognize as a purchase because it doesn't show up on a credit card statement or a bank statement or any financial record of any kind. You buy someone else's timeline when you upgrade the apartment because your social group moved to nicer places and the gap started feeling uncomfortable. When you finance the car because your income level implies a different vehicle than the one you're driving. When you rush the home purchase because the cultural script says renting at your age is falling behind. When you slow down the savings rate because the peer group isn't saving aggressively and the discipline starts to feel socially abnormal. Every time you spend in response to where other people's lives appear to be, rather than where your own financial trajectory requires you to be, you are purchasing someone else's timeline with your own money. That purchase has no receipt, produces no asset, generates no return, and compounds against your actual financial goals with the same relentless arithmetic as credit card interest. The wealth builders have at some point made a specific decision that separates them from most of the people around them. They stopped measuring their financial behavior against what appears normal in their reference group and started measuring it against what their own numbers require. That decision is not dramatic. It doesn't require a dramatic lifestyle change. It just requires running the math on your own situation and letting that math, rather than the social environment around you, set the standard for what enough looks like and when upgrading is actually justified. 12 things, some obvious, some less so, and at least a few that produce the specific recognition this video was designed to create. The list is not about deprivation. Every item on it has a version that serves a genuine function at the right price, at the right time, in the right financial context. The problem is not the item. The problem is the automatic version of the purchase, the one made without calculating the real cost, without considering the opportunity cost, without running the 30-year number on what that monthly expenditure becomes when redirected. Run the number on every category on this list that produced the recognition. Not because the number will always tell you not to spend, but because making the decision with the number visible produces different outcomes over long enough periods than making it without. The wealth is in the difference. 12 categories, at least 3 of them produce the recognition. Now you have the number.